Namaste, this is Bhushita from Nepal. In this special session organized by Nepal Literature Festival in collaboration with Himalayan Echoes, we have a rather august company in conversation. Ani Choying Drolma is a renowned Buddhist nun. With her avant-garde music and humanitarian work, she has won a number of accolades and admirers from all around the world. She has performed with some of the best musicians of our time, including none less than the Academy Award-winning A.R. Rahman. Ani was born to the family of artisans in Bauddha, Nepal. And then her subsequent meteoric rise to glory has been nothing less spectacular than the Cinderella's tale. A part of the story has been chronicled in her book Singing for Freedom, originally published in French and now translated in more than 15 languages. So let's welcome our guest today. Ani, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Like I said earlier, your personality is so scintillating. It's very difficult to do justice to all of it in a very brief conversation. But today I would like to begin the conversation with music. Ani, when you sort of like came into Nepali music industry in the beginning, your music was so unique and yet so deceptively simple, and it sort of like catapulted you into a great fame. But how did music find such a stunning flowering in you? What was your relationship with music in the more formative years?
Bhushita, thank you so much. Every time I see you, you're always showering with me with beautiful words. I really feel so happy, actually. Regarding the music, I mean, before I came to the Nepali music industry, I was actually already introduced to the world as a musician, so-called musician, though none of the academic knowledge of music was there in myself. It's a very auspicious coincidence that it took place. I should give all the credit to this very kind American friend of mine who's a musician. His name is Steve Tibbets. A lot of the people think he's Tibet. No, it's not. It's Tibbets.
Tibbets.
Yeah. So it was his idea and his effort to really create that very beautiful fusion with his electronic guitar and my very organic voice, the way I singing hymns and mantras and all these songs. So it was his idea, and he really approached the different record companies about such a beautiful creation, how we can share it to the world and so on. So he was the one who approached me as well.
Ani, how did he sort of like discovered you? How did that happen? How did he notice you?
Well, he used to come to Nagigompa, where I belong. It's a nunnery up in the northern hill of Kathmnadu.
Where you had been nun for how many years?
Since the age of 13 till 25, I was there with my teacher, and he used to come there and he used to learn meditation from my teacher. He was very much interested into Buddhist knowledge and practice of meditation. So one day, with the help of a friend, he heard me singing and they wanted to record. I recorded just simply out of, thought that, he just wanted to record something, which we normally do in order to learn the melodies, in order to participate in any of the ritual ceremonies. And then, but then the surprising thing was later he sent a demo cassette to me, mixing my singing, my voice along with his instruments and so on. And at the same time with the proposal if I would be interested to create an album with him. And he also mentioned that
He was already an established musician.
Oh, very much, yes, yeah. Yes. And he also mentioned that some of the record companies were very excited about it. When I read the proposal, he sent a message actually with the cassette along with it. I immediately went to approach my teacher and I asked him what he thought about it. And the first sentence that he uttered was like, okay, yeah, do it. what you're singing is something that will benefit many people. Whoever listens to it, doesn't matter if they are believers or non-believers, they all will be benefited. And that was very good enough for me to have no doubts about what I'm doing. So then after that I agreed to it, and then very kindly Steve came to Nepal with all his equipments, because at that time my teacher was going through some challenge with his physical health, and I was there to serve and care for him as a nurse, though I was not a professionally trained nurse, but I was trained a little by a doctor in order to be able to take care of him for what he needed with, due to my little knowledge of English. So I learned how to check blood pressure, blood sugar, urine, how much of intake and outgoing, and I also learned how to use the stethoscope to check if there are any fluids in the lungs that I can hear. And so I used to write it down, the report, and consult with the doctors occasionally regarding his health status. So I wasn't able to go around so much. So, but then as he came to Nagigompa, he brought all of his equipment. So every day, probably 1 to 2 hours of time I took off from serving or caring for Rinpoche, my teacher. And before I went for recording, I sang to him, and I had the thumbs up from him, and then I went for recording. And that's the special memory of my first album called Choying.
And how did that, I mean, we all know, but I would like to hear this from you. And then that album was sort of like a foray into a new world. You were the debut star, like it sort of like catapulted you into fame. How did that go about after the
Well,
album?
in my mind, none of those things made much of a excitement to me, because I really never thought that I want to become a singer and I want to be known in the world and so on. None of those ideas were in my mind. But then when Steve sent me a thick book, which was the copies of the reviews that we received from different magazines such as Guitar, Rock, Rolling Stones, and you name them, Cosmopolitan, Vogue, and so on, all these very fancy magazines, which in those days I had no idea what they meant, really. Now I know. But then, even though I went through those pages, it really didn't mean much for me, until the day he sent me a letter asking me if I would be interested to go on a concert tour in America. And that invitation more meant as I get to see America, rather than thinking that, I'm going to go perform, give concerts, and I'm going to be popular. So I accepted that invitation later on, and I took two other friends along with me. We were in America.
How did you find that experience from a cloistered, chamber monastery in Nepal, suddenly to the star, a performer in the US? How did that?
As a young girl, I was filled with curiosity about the world, the modern world, so-called developed world and the modern world, and so I was excited to go there. And then big cities, shopping malls, and as you can imagine, you might have read in my book, I was so much into shoes. I was wanting to buy new shoes and so on. And then the other thing was the famous popular American thing is McDonald's. So very much curious and excited about towards those kind of experiences.
Ani, was that the first time about that you started, like sort of earning money? Was that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So once I started performing, and we were like within a month, we performed almost 20 something concerts within a month.
Wow.
1 month period of time of tour. We drove from Twin City, Minnesota, to all the way to Massachusetts in a very big van, with the manager, sound technician, the percussionist, and then Steve himself and me with two other nuns. So yeah, it was a very new and exciting experience for me. But then later on, when I realized every concert has a paycheck that was coming, and that was like a big surprise to me. And then the question came along with it. What do I want to do with the money? And then interviews took place, and I started receiving questions such as, "What is your dream? And what is your future plan?" And then it was very clear. My future plan is, my dream is to see nuns or girls in my country to be educated. I wanted to be educated, but somehow due to this very unfavorable circumstances that I was in, I could not pursue further. But somehow deep inside I somehow had this very strong belief that we girls or women should be educated as equally as the men are. So the money, the resources that was generated out of doing that concert tour was very much source of my courage and strength to feel that I can fulfill my dream. So I started answering those questions in such manner, and then, yeah, today, as everybody can see, I have a school. Many kids been, served to have better academic education and pursue furthermore towards some other professions.
Which is amazing. I cannot praise you enough for that. I've been to your Aryatara school and I've seen the atmosphere there. Ani, generally, even for worldly people like us, that amount of fame, that amount of success, that amount of even money, it's enough to sort of like disorient you. For you, a Buddhist nun who had always lived a life in an ermitage, like a cloistered life, how did you develop the relationship with money? Did it disorient you in the beginning, or my question is, did you always know that you wanted to make the school, or did it came impromptu because something had to be done with the money?
Well, at the earlier stage of my life, when I wanted, because I believed in giving, better education for girls would be the answer to our society, whatever unpleasant tradition or the culture that we are still ignorantly following. But I never thought that I could do it. But later on, when I received the money and the resources that was there very beautifully out of music, it gave me the confidence to think that I can do it. Before that, I didn't have the confidence to think that I can do it. I prayed for some others to do it. But once I gained the confidence, I didn't look back, and I started working towards it, and I did it. Yes, if I say I wasn't carried away, it would be a lie. I was carried away occasionally. I was a little bit distracted by it, and I started enjoying the pampering and the popularity that was there occasionally, yes. But the best part of that experience is every time somewhere I realized that I'm getting carried away, my teacher was always the one to bring me back on track, and now I have the confidence that as long as my teacher is in my heart, which will never go away till my last breath, and I will not be carried away too far. Occasionally,
too far.
Yes.
Too far. Ani, does this sense of responsibility for young nuns, does it come from the space of personal deprivation? Because
Yes.
you are very much an autodidact, you are a self-taught person,
Yeah.
you've taught yourself, you did not have an access to education. So how do you view this deprivation in your personal life? Do you have sense of regret about it?
Today in the normal society, when we talk about it, we talk in a manner such as it's very ugly and so on. But then for me, I should say it was a blessing in disguise when now at this stage of my life, I look at it as the blessing in disguise for me. If I wouldn't have gone through that experience, probably I wouldn't have really fantasized or made extra effort or to take it as a challenge to prove what I can do and what these young girls are capable of doing in our society. So the source of inspiration and the strength and everything is due to the experience that I went through, that so-called unfavorable experiences such as domestic violence and the culture of patriarchy, which is very ignorantly still exists. But then if that hasn't challenged me, I don't know if I would have been able to dig out my inner strength and then the vision to fulfill, to exhibit what is hiding inside us.
Ani, this question brings me to a personal query, because There are times when I question the relevance of institutions like monasteries, where like women are not necessarily women or men. They're not necessarily getting married, but live a very solitary life.
Yeah.
Is it a natural way of living? Is it still relevant to the world, our world today? Or what are the things that it could give to us? Because I have always been fascinated with spirituality, but I doubted, is this the path for me? Like, am I going to deprive myself of something, the grass is greener on the other side,
My father used to joke about it and occasionally challenged me when we were in better terms in our life. And he used to kind of jokingly or in a very sarcastically would say to me, he's like, you think you have renounced the samsara. Actually, you renounce the small samsara to get into the bigger samsara there. So, you see, whenever there is a community, many people living together, it's a community and different mindsets are there, different opinions, different characters are living together. But then the purpose of that institution is not necessarily to be addressed in a wrong way, but it is a method that has been applied to make collective effort, to help each other. As they're saying, one can move a rock, but 100 can move a mountain. When it is institutionalized, actually, it's a collective effort, and more strength and more power is there in order to fulfill the need and to give a proper training in proper systems to be developed in order to assist the individuals to really enhance their inner knowledge or train them. So it's not something that I would consider bad. And then, of course, practicing celibacy and belonging to a monastic community. For me personally, I've really very much been benefited by it because like-minded has been around, and as we always say culturally, sangat guna ko phal, choose right company and environment to grow. So if you spend time with the wrong people, you will learn wrong things. That is not
You'll
beneficial.
imbibe their qualities.
Yes, that's what it says. So in the monastery, like let's say 99.9% of the people are very much into looking forward, enhancing their inner wisdom, cultivating more compassion in that practice and that exercise that they are in it. So if the others are doing the similar thing and then I want to do the similar things, it gives strength,
But again,
encouragement.
Ani, in this context, I see that spirituality has been sort of like, hidden in a haze because we generally, the world outside has become so competitive. There's so much of sense of competition and the ambition has to be spiked really high. So it's really difficult to outperform ourselves every day and not be inundated by stress and worry and all sort of things. So when we look at spirituality, we look at it as a binary. It's escape, like, oh, now I've shunned the world, like I'm a lone wolf now meditating, nothing can touch me.
Yeah.
And I see that this sort of like binary thinking of the world and the spiritual has made us even more split, has incapacitated our ability to handle the world. But you've been one of those nun who equally participates in the world, and you strike a balance with your spiritual practices. So
I have a different understanding on that, actually. Yes, as you explained, I agree. That's how it is being perceived regarding the spirituality, But in my understanding, spirituality is not about being very religious. Going isolated in a monastery, meditating, thinking that I'm now very spiritual. I don't know if it is all in it. But for me, spiritual development is something that we are enhancing our capacity to perceive the world from a very wider perspective, rather than being very rigid from one side of the perspectives, and being able to look at every experience in life, whether there's favorable, unfavorable, from a aspect that there's something good in it. How can I take the right result out of that particular experience? So I think that is about being spiritual, and then being able to align yourself more towards the beneficial aspect of that particular experience or situation or anything, what you're going through, or what you're seeing, or how you're perceiving things. So being spiritual, I think, is something like that. I align with you, with my sensitivity of my emotions, with full respect. You know, that's what I consider as being spiritual. You know, not something that you're different. I don't want you. No. Oh, she's different, and that's beautiful. But let me see how I can relate to it. Being able to develop that flexibility, that ground where you can celebrate rather the similarity rather than the differences. Differences should take place in a way to more challenge you to grow more beautifully, I guess, rather than thinking of what you explained earlier. And that is my experiences, and I've been trying to exercise myself into that manner, and it has really benefited me a lot to become who I am today. Yes, there are moments where I'm like feeling like, this is not the way I want to feel, and I don't like this feeling. But then at the end, I say to myself, this is so funny. I'm feeling like this, you know. It's why am I feeling like this? Is it kind of bringing me some benefit or not? No, I don't think so. But then my awareness says, my awakened mind says, it's nonsense. It's not useful. But it is there. Then I am able to observe it, and that's my spiritual practice. Rather than thinking that I want to be away from the world. Yes, there are times when I really enjoy alone, breathe the very pure air in the forest, and then listen to the bird chirping, and then the insects, the sound, the whisper of this wind, and so on. That's there, where I can focus on more inside rather than outside, where I don't have to entertain other people's mind and the way they think. That's a fantasy that I feel as a luxury that I want to enjoy these days at this stage of my life. But essentially, yes, being spiritual is not necessary for you to be in the forest or in the cave or with rags, look like a beggar. No, I don't believe in that. But being religious doesn't necessarily mean that you are spiritual. Sometimes being religious become very rigid and can generate some division in the society, and superiority and inferiority mindset is something that is not a very auspicious thing to take place.
You very much practiced what you preached, because I remember listening to your song Fulko Akhama Phule Sansara. I think one of your early Nepali songs.
That is the landmark of my singing career.
Yeah, and it has aged wonderfully. It has aged like wine, because I mean, even today we listen to the song and it sort of like hits just the right note in us today, and it has become so popular that it has almost gained an idiomatic value in Nepali society. The point that I'm trying to make here is, just like you said, you sort of like brought out the Tibetan chants and mantras from the chambers of monastery in such a manner, in such simple words, that even an unversed lay person like me can be soothed and healed and benefited by it. So Ani, in all spiritual traditions all around the world, we see that music has been such a dominant part of the spiritual traditions everywhere, Buddhism, Hinduism, Sufi tradition.
Yeah.
So what is the relationship between mind and music? How does it help in meditation or reaching that space within us?
What I learned is that melody in general has an ability to soothe every mind, not necessarily only human. The animals, the insects, the plants, and everything around you. It's the music inherent quality and ability that it has. That's why in every religious community they use music as a method or the tool to reach out to the heart, to build that ground where all can relax and then go further, deeper. And I think probably that's why every religious community uses music, melody. And then technical part is something that I usually feel like, like when we sing we are in focus, like in one mind, like in one direction, or focusing on one particular thing. So our mind is not occupied by too many things at a time. So that also helps to generate that positive vibe or the frequency that people can feel. And the other thing is, when we sing, we breathe deep. That is very beneficial for physical body, and then it assists the mind also to rest in the calmness. And then when the calmness takes place, clarity takes place. Clarity takes place as I was told, my teacher taught me that the wisdom develops. So I think that is the purpose of meditation. So, as according to the method of meditation as we practice in our Buddhist culture. So I think that is the purpose, I guess. And so
which is really reassuring, because there was this stand-up comedian, George Carlin. George Carlin once said that the only good thing to have come out of religion is music. As always, Ani, this is going to be an abrupt conversation between us, because I always feel like there's so much more to ask, but then we always, reach the deadline. But probably my last question to you would be, Ani, you've always lived outside the given parameter, the mores, either as a woman, as a nun, as a spiritual practitioner. You've always spilled out and become more than whatever box was given to you. And even if music brought you fame, it also, you've been in public domain for more than 2 decades now. You've been under the steady gaze of public. So how do you see this fame? Does this make you more accountable, or is it also burdensome, cumbersome at some point? How do you deal with so many eyes constantly gazing at you as a nun?
Little bit of everything is there. But then, of course, as I always think of my teacher. My teacher is the inseparable strength that I have in my heart. As long as he's there in my heart. None of these worldly aspect of different fame, name, and money, and whatever you call it, would really distract me too much. Yes, it is a natural phenomena that I enjoy the pampering, I enjoy the attention, I enjoy the special treat and admiration, the praises. That is a natural part. At the same time, I'm also annoyed by the extra attention that I receive of what I do, even from very little things to be judged.
Or criticisms about you owning a certain amount of money or cars, luxury
yes,
cars.
Absolutely. I'm very normal as everybody else. I'm affected by it. But then, thanks to my teacher, as this inner core, as being in the inner core of my heart, he is this, ultimate strength, source of my strength to be myself. And then there are times when I'm aware of his presence in my heart, is when I can be in natural state of myself. So then that also, I guess, what people can experience me as who I am in real. And I'm very much strongly still struggling, of course, not to fool myself with all these very delusional, so-called delusional thing of fame, name, and all the what I appear to be outside in the world, which from the eyes of the society judge as very, what do you call it, luxurious nun. And that is there. It's a truth. It's truth. So I don't deny that. I like to be comfortable. I like to be loved. I don't like to be criticized. I love to be respected. It is there. But then I want more and more frequently at this stage of my life, I'm able to come back to me as who I am, and I don't resist to that. I don't carried away by that, and I want to be in this state of myself more and more. So I'm struggling in that, and I am very much clearly struggling with the hypocrisy in my own mind, in the world outside, and so-called the judgment or the critics or the compliments in everything. The hypocrisy is something that I need to purify myself from, and so
Annie, you're one of the most brutally honest person about yourself and about the world that I've ever met. And this sort of like restores my faith in spirituality because, you know, we encounter so many gurus, and no disrespect to them, with due respect, who are making very tall claims, you know, about themselves and about the magic that they can bestow upon the people. And that tall mountains of expectation is sometimes misleading. But every time I sit down in conversation with you, a very revered Buddhist nun, a practitioner for many decades now, and I listen to you and the way you relate that how you're still struggling to maintain the equanimity of your mind, it is very humbling and it's very reassuring.
I'm blessed. I am able to do this, and it's all because of my teacher. Yeah.
Now, finally, the final question.
Okay.
Sort of getting emotional
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
So, the final question, Ani, is you've already achieved so much. I mean, achievement is probably
Very subjective.
But for the lack of better word, you've done so much, you've achieved so much, the school, the kidney hospital, and other many various humanitarian works. What next, Ani? What is next? What is there for you? What does the future hold
It's so
for you?
funny. Somebody just 2 days ago asked me a question of about why I'm fantasizing about myself to be in retreat, and I wouldn't say retire from music or retire from such thing, fame and name, but then somehow I have come to the realization that now my life should focus more on like retreat. I want to be in nature. I want to enjoy the true luxury of life, of a human existence. So,
Which is not the Land Rover, but the nature.
no, not at all, not at all, not at all. I mean, you see, human tendency is such that we always find excuses to blame others. And I'm no different to others, really. I do the same thing. But then thanks to my teacher, that as I really try to a lot of self-reflection, inner reflection, I feel like it's not their fault. World is as it is. The world as we perceive outside, the worldly activities, as it is, it's there. But it's my fault. How I perceive them and how I'm affected by them it's totally my responsibility. Now I have come to a point, I'm not strong enough to really completely deal with the world as it is. I seem to still have the habitual pattern of judging it in such a manner, you know, that sometimes you feel, oh, this is not good, this is good, this is yeah, you know. So now I want to go to a place where I can really build up the stamina of my heart or my mind to deal with in a very balanced manner, so that I can rejoice in every aspect of life to the fullest and be in that state of equanimity with bliss, you know. That's my fantasy right now at this stage of my life. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and I'm preparing myself for that as well. I don't know if that the right preparation is being done or not, but I'm still like kind of telling myself, yeah, I'm preparing to that. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
Thank you for the conversation, Ani. It's always so blissful to be in your presence.
Thank you. You are so beautiful. tu tare tore soha Om tare 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 tu tare tore soha Tare tu tare ture soha Om 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 tare tu tare tore 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 soha Tare tu tare ture soha Om 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 tare tu tare tore 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 soha Tare tu tare ture soha Om 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 tare tu tare ture soha Tare tu tare ture soha Om 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 tare
tare dore soha. Tare du tare dure soha. Om 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 tare du tare dore 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 soha. Tare du tare dure soha. Om 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 tare du tare dore 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 soha. Tare du tare dure soha. Om 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 tare du tare dore 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 soha. Tare du tare dure soha. Om 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 tare du tare dore 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 soha. Moi ratnai troya en homu arya jana saga